Family. Assets over liabilities. SpaceX has officially went public. Just seeing Elon Musk about 9:50, 10 o'clock Eastern time. And I have to say that Elon Musk is one of the greats. I have to say, when you say the great, when you're dealing with a businessman, when you're dealing with companies going public, as he took Tesla public and he just took SpaceX public, you have to put him in the realm of one of the greatest investors of all time. You have to put him up there with the likes of Steve Jobs, the likes of Warren Buffett, the likes of the greats. And I gotta say, he's probably, depends on whose opinion or, whose perspective, he's probably number one. We're not talking about character issues. We're talking about business. We're talking about resilience. We're talking about bringing a company from zero. We're talking about being an amazing, resilient businessman, and I gotta say that for him to be able to bring SpaceX into our living room, a vision that, I would think that he's taking the fiction out of science fiction. What do I mean by that? He's taking the fiction out of science fiction because he's making it a reality. Things that we never thought could happen, he's making it into a reality. He's to me is the modern day Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was very resilient. Steve Jobs took Apple public. They had their first IPO. Steve Jobs was very resilient. I think they took different paths, but they both are very resilient and very unique. Jeff Bezos not too far off, and you got Elon Musk with SpaceX, you got Elon Musk with Tesla, Starship, and you can't say enough about what he's doing for humanity. Now, the same as Bezos, he has Blue Origin. He's bringing into existence also. He's gonna pretty much bring it public. He's gonna have an IPO. I haven't heard an announcement. I heard an announcement for OpenAI, which Elon Musk was at some point a part of. And what happened with that? However, I don't know the key points about it, but I know that he went to court to actually, get some type of compensation for OpenAI, which is about to go. They spoke that they're gonna have the IPO. They're going public also. The same as SpaceX. Sam Altman is over there as the founder of OpenAI. OpenAI is connected to ChatGPT, and what we're seeing the booming of AI, which is artificial intelligence. We're seeing a boom, but we're also seeing that there's a boom in the infrastructure. There's a boom of creating the infrastructure. When you go to talking about the Anthropics, you go to talking about the Nvidias, you go to talking about guys like Caterpillar, you go to talking about guys that's dealing with the actual infrastructure of GPUs, CPUs, and creating data centers, right? Because what's going to happen is that we're going to actually need data centers everywhere. And Elon is trying to put data centers also in space. You know, he already has satellites over there. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he has over thousands of satellites already there. You know, Jeff Bezos has some satellites over there. You know, if I'm not mistaken, I think he has like maybe a couple of hundred. You know, but we're headed somewhere. We're headed somewhere in the near future that we thought was science fiction. But like I said, we're going to take the fiction out of science, right? We're going to take the fiction out because it has become a reality. It is real. You know, SpaceX announced its IPO today. You know, OpenAI is going to announce its IPO, Sam Altman. You know, and like I was saying, is that Elon Musk and Sam Altman, these guys were connected. You know, these guys has been business partners at one point in time. You know, how did Sam Altman, did he swindle them? Was it, you know, one seen a different vision and the other one had a different vision? You know, I don't know the details of why Elon Musk is not a part of OpenAI. All I know is that SpaceX has IPO today, and Elon Musk is not a part of OpenAI, but he has went public with SpaceX and its trajectory to be a $1 trillion company, and its trajectory to have the largest IPO ever. The trajectory is to have the largest IPO ever. And Elon Musk, you know, he has become something where one guy said that he would become the first trillionaire in the world as an individual, not as a company, but as an individual. They said that he would be the first trillionaire in the company. Yes, SpaceX just went live. They just announced its IPO, and Elon Musk just gave his speech, and the trajectory of SpaceX has become a $1 trillion company. They looked at it becoming starting out this morning at 135. I think it's up to like 150 now, you know, and I think that Elon Musk is this guy that's right there with Steve Jobs. I think he's right there. I think the trajectory, I think the things that Steve Jobs envisioned, I think that they are coming into play right now. You know, because like I said, that we looked at science fiction, but now Elon is taking fiction out of the science because he's bringing this into a reality. You know, the things that we thought were just science fiction, that were, you know, something that would never happen, has happened. You know, we thought that it would never happen. We didn't think that there would be a time where, you know, regular citizens will be going to the moon or going out in space. I know I didn't think so, you know, but right now it's happening, you know. And the same as I was speaking about Jeff Bezos with Blue Origin, he's trying to do the same thing. So what I'm getting at is that it's becoming a reality. It's no longer science fiction. It's no longer something that we're waiting on. And this is creating, SpaceX IPO today has created a trajectory of the largest IPO ever. SpaceX has created the largest IPO ever. And you can't take that away from Elon, because of character issues. We don't know. All I know is that he's resilient. He's a great businessman. And I think personally that he's right up there with Steve Jobs. I think he's right up there. I think that the same vision, the same resilience, the same motivation. I think that the way that he existed, the way that Steve Jobs existed, and the way that Elon exists. You connect these, you connect the past to the future. You connecting the past to the future. Steve, he wanted to see computers. He wanted to see computers. He wanted to see computers used as like a everyday computer. He wanted to see a phone, a smartphone used as a everyday, and put into the average person's hands. And it happened. It was a vision. It was a vision. Steve Jobs, he had his IPO with Apple. He had a vision. The same thing with Elon Musk. He want to see the existence of the planetarium. He want to see dual planetarium. He wants to see, and whether it's your belief, whether you think it can happen, he want to see people live in space and on Earth. Just as his vision. He has said it numerous of times. Right? And just because you think that, well, that can't happen, many people may have thought that, may have thought that there would not be computers in every household. Many people may have thought that. Many people may have thought that the phones today that we have today would be as smart as they are, But they are. And it don't seem so intelligent or so smart, or it seems so normal because we have came so far. We talking about Apple IPO maybe like what, 30, 40 years ago. I think Apple IPO was in 81. They had the IPO in 81, in the 80s, something like that. And now look today. Just look how far AI has come from that day to this day. And if we're thinking that things can't happen, or there can't be a dual planetarium, humans can't live both places, just keep living. Just keep living. And you'll see, just like the people didn't believe that Steve Jobs would be able to put a computer in every household. Some people didn't believe it. When you have, or you create, or you have a vision, or you have, this navigation system that creates a destination, and in between the creation and the destination, people can't see. You can't see because it's not your vision. It's not your vision, so you're not allowed to see it at an embryo stage. The creation and through the destination. Everybody just want to see, forget the creation, forget the relentlessness, forget the hard work, just the destination. Nobody wanna go through the tribulations, the trials and tribulations, the creation of creating whatever it may be. From Steve Jobs, who was building Apple and having the people to believe that at one point that at some time there's going to be a computer in every household. You know, at one time people did not believe it. You know, even some of his friends didn't believe it. And I said in another live that, you know, even your friends, your closest friends are not going to travel where you're traveling, you know, because the vision that you have is not their vision. You know, the same as with Elon. You know, the public vision is not, the vision that he has is not the public vision. He's trying to get you to see that this is going to happen. What I'm speaking of is going to happen. That I am going to take people into space. That I'm going to be able to see to it that there be a dual planetarium. Like people living in space and people living on Earth. This is his vision. This is his goal. And who am I to say that's not going to happen? Who am I to say that it's not going to happen? You know, we have seen with AI, we have seen tremendous trajectory and improvement. And we're talking about like within, AI is exploding within days, months, multiple months, years. Just go back to like a year and see where AI was, what you knew about AI and what you know today. You know, you go and look at what you knew then to what you know now, and our beliefs change. Our perspectives change. As long as we're living, our perspectives change. You know, and if they don't, then there's a problem, you know, because if your perspective don't change, because you're learning daily, if you're learning every day, then your perspective should change. You know, if there's something that, you know, you don't believe that can happen, and then you see it happen right in front of your face, and now you still don't believe it can happen, now, I mean, you're just being, you know, stubborn or just, you know, back in the days, they called Stephen Jobs, he was such a into-your-face guy, they called him a-holes. You know, he was like in your face, you know, he was like, you know, stubborn, but at the same time, you know, he got things done. You know, at some point they say he worked 3 days without any sleep. He said he worked 3 days without any sleep. Same thing. Same story I heard about Elon. Same story I heard about Jeff Bezos. You know, to create a company like Amazon. You know, but SpaceX is, I think, is a great company. An IPO today. It's gonna make a lot of headlines, and it's gonna make a lot of people a lot of money. You know, and billionaire baby, assets over liabilities, and I'm out. Thank you guys.